The US indictment against the Lawrence Bishnoi syndicate had two major takeaways. Firstly, that it was the Lawrence Bishnoi syndicate that was allegedly involved with the Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar's murder. Now, this contradicts what earlier Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, had said. He had alleged the involvement of Indian government officials in this operation. Now, this is the first time that the United States has put on record in the form of this indictment that it was actually executed by the Lawrence Bishnoi syndicate. The second important thing in this indictment is that it lays bare the entire syndicate of Lawrence Bishnoi and how they were involved in extortion, targeted killings, drugs, and other crimes across the world. It's a transnational syndicate that runs across India, Canada, US, and even parts of Europe. Now, this has also brought back the spotlight on these organized crime syndicates that are operational in India, in Canada, in USA, and Europe. To understand how these gangster networks function, what is the nexus between the Sikh separatists and gangsters, where does the money stream flow, how do these gangs have such foothold in these countries? We have with us author Kushal Mehra, who will be speaking to us on these issues. Hello and welcome to the print, Mr. Kushal Mehra. Thank you for joining us on this very important topic. We have spoken in the past regarding how this entire Sikh separatist nexus with gangsters work. It is again relevant now after the US indictment yesterday that lays bare the entire operation of the Lawrence Bishnoi gang and how it was operational in not just in India but also in the US, Canada, and parts of Europe. So coming to my first question, the problem of organized crime in Canada is not new. Like I said, we have spoken about it in the past. These gangs are involved in extortion, targeted killings, drugs, arms trafficking, and whatnot. If you could tell our viewers that how did this entire nexus begin and how did these gangs really gain that foothold in Canada that they started influencing not just business economy but also politics, and how serious is this problem?
Look, the gangs in Canada have been here for a while. Like, I don't know how many people remember Bindi Johal. He is one of the original Punjabi gangsters of Canada. This goes into the 1990s. From that time, gangs were always there, but they were never this powerful. They never had this level of recruitment. And the reason for that simply being was in terms of the flow of immigration into Canada, right? It was never at the level at which we saw in the last 5 to 10 years. There was a distinct change of immigration patterns, especially in the Justin Trudeau era, especially after COVID. Because what happened during COVID, right? A lot of people stopped working. They were paid to stay at home. Now, the policies always have a trade-off, as the great Thomas Sowell said, that, the trade-off of paying people to stay home was there were too many job vacancies. Nobody was working. So while Canadians were sitting at home, they realized somebody's got to do some job. That's when, a lot of these Khalistani politicians, and I have no shame in calling them Khalistani politicians, if they are not Khalistanis, these Canadian members of parliament, they should come on the record and say, we are not Khalistanis, we condemn Khalistan, the idea. The interesting bit is they will always say we're not separatists. I'll give you a name of a politician, just Raj Allan. He recently in an interview said, I'm not a separatist. But you should see, the problem with the journalist was nobody asked the follow-up. So do you condemn Khalistan? That's where the cookie crumbles. And it's not about a Hindu-Sikh issue. Even Arpan Khanna, I would ask the same question of Arpan Khanna also, who's a Hindu, right? And I've always said, in Canada, Khalistan is Hindu-Sikh. It is not Sikh. And so we go to the immigration bit. They started calling these numbers. Now, remember, there was a motion, M44, that was put forth by the then member of parliament. He's still a member of parliament, Randeep Sarai. There is a very open video available. If you want, you can play that also. He clearly says, we will create PR pathways for international students and foreign workers. PR pathways, straight. You become a student and then you become a permanent resident. So there was this sea of people who came in over here, mostly from Punjab, a major chunk of them in the first wave was from Punjab. Second wave actually came from Gujarat and Haryana too. I'm not denying that. But the first wave came from Punjab. A lot of these people sold their ancestral land in Punjab. The going rate usually to come used to be 50,000 Canadian dollars, 25,000 Canadian dollars. But there was a special rate. And this special rate used to be 100,000 Canadian dollars if you're a gangster. That's the rate for the gangsters at that time. And this was like Jagjahir knowledge. And what the loophole these people exploited the most was the student visa loophole. The student visa in Canada, for some magical reason, in the wisdom of the Canadian political class, did not need a police clearance certificate.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I am a landed immigrant in Canada. I had to get a proper police clearance certificate in Mumbai from the Mumbai police. Like, I had to go through the process to legally be vetted properly, whether I'm a criminal, do I have a criminal record or not. But if you were a student, you went to Canada as a student, you did not have to do that. So if you notice, a lot of news reports, even in Canada, whether it's the Globe and Mail, whether it's the Toronto Star, and many other papers, Vancouver Sun, they all often you will see a lot of these recruits as shooters are young students who they came on a student visa.
Yeah.
So,
in fact, the US indictment clearly mentions how the Lawrence Bishnoi syndicate recruited minors essentially to evade law enforcement authorities because law is much lenient on juveniles, and also sent them to these countries, whether it's US, Canada, or Europe, on student visas.
Yeah, I think that was point number 17 in the Bishnoi indictment. Yeah. So this is how it comes. It starts with M44, Randeep Sarai peddling it. And remember, it was unanimously voted yes by conservatives, liberals, NDP, Green Party, Independent, all of them. There is one confusion about one individual per MP. Sometimes it shows as a no, sometimes it shows as a yes. I don't know why the glitch is there in the House of Commons website. It's very confusing. But other than that, it was a unanimously voted motion. And that led to this change, because what happened was, when I was a student, I couldn't work more than 18 hours. But these people who came here as students, who were in these diploma mills, and these diploma mills at times did not even need more than 1 hour or 2 hours of study time. So basically they were doing 40 hours a week. They just were working. And this is where a lot of these gangs snuck in these people. And then when they were in Canada, because it was harder to get into America through the student route, because America does not have these silly rules that the Canadians do. So it's much harder to get into America. In America, you know what they do is they go to Mexico and then they try the donkey route. And in my interviews in America, in California especially, when I was interviewing people, I have interviewed people who have told me we tried 16 times, 20 times, 30 times, and we would constantly be caught by ICE at the border. They would be sent back. They would try again. And you know, and Instagram pay, if now it has significantly reduced, but there was a time during the Biden administration and the Trudeau administration, Instagram was rife with open videos of people recording others of crossing the border illegally into America. Open. And they would share their WhatsApp number. They would just openly talk about it. So there was a time when all of this happened, and the gangs really infiltrated this system, and that's how we are where we are.
Right. And when it comes to this Sikh separatist gangster nexus, how did that emerge, that nexus, and how did it thrive so much in both these countries?
At the end of the day, any separatist movement needs money to survive, right?
Yes.
Look, it's very different from how it used to happen in the 80s and 90s in India, where the ISI was actively funding these people. Now they found out a much easier way. They can self-fund themselves by drugs. Drugs has a lot of money. And obviously, the cartels are there in Mexico, right there in North America. And the cartels, what is the one thing that cartels need the most? They need logistics. And the logistics was controlled a lot. Honestly, a giant chunk of the logistics is controlled by the Sikh community. And then the Khalistanis started exploiting that loophole, because they went to these cartels and told them, listen, these gangsters went to these cartels and told them, we can exploit this. We are there, we can use this. And unfortunately, there sometimes, they would threaten drivers individually, or they would threaten companies individually, or some companies and drivers just started doing it willingly. And that's how. And then there was the third aspect, which again the indictment talks about. The Dhanda indictment, point number 5, clearly says that someone inside the Canadian border security apparatus on their payrolls. Now, remember, the Indian government had accused the Canadian government of the same thing in 2024, when the Indian government was mocked. Obviously, we are third world people. We can't speak truths. Only white people speak truths. So the moment Canada's Papa, America, said, "Ki beta, you have a problem," like a good son, Canada immediately agreed that, yeah, my Papa is right. So basically, the Americans only confirmed what India said. India had said the same thing in 2024. The Americans said the same thing in 2026. So it's a nexus. These gangs and the Khalistanis needed money to survive. In fact, now the gangs were using Khalistan as a movement to gain victimhood points. Because see, at the end of the day, the essence of Western orthodoxy. See, cultures have orthodoxy and heterodoxy, right? And they keep changing. If you were someone born in the 50s, 60s, maybe the culture was more right-wing, Christian, and stuff like that. The McCarthyism time and stuff like that in the United States of America. But the cultural orthodoxy of the West distinctly changed. It was a left-wing orthodoxy now. And in the left-wing orthodoxy, and we have to understand the culture to understand how the gangs work. The culture now is victimhood. The currency exchange is now victimhood. Who's a bigger victim? It's all the epistemology comes in. And the gangs realize that Khalistan is the perfect victimhood point. So to get cover for all these nefarious activities, they use Khalistan as a cover.
Right.
Now, this is no justification. I'm not trying to justify the movement of Khalistan. All I'm saying is that it was the perfect storm. So to answer your question, this is why the gangs use Khalistan as a cover, because it was the perfect reason for them. And that gave them legitimacy, so that nobody would question them in the orthodoxy. They would just think, oh, these were just innocent activists. What have they got to do? And behind all of it, they would do drug peddling. And then what happens is a lot of this money then is also given to these separatists so that they can survive. Why do you think the Khalistanis took over the Gurdwaras? Because the one place a lot of money can be washed off via donations are the Gurdwaras. You can just drop in $1,000, $500 as donations. So you have to understand how Canadian mandirs and Gurdwaras work. They work like organizations, right? So they sell memberships. India में मंदिर में सिर्फ आप पूजा करने जा रहे हो. There is a giant difference in a mandir in India or a Gurdwara in India and a mandir in Canada and a Gurdwara in Canada. These are community centers. They have memberships.
Right.
So, for example, कोई मंदिर की membership $250 होगी, किसी की $500 होगी, गुरुद्वारे की भी होती है. So अभी आपको तो सिर्फ member create करना है ना, dummy. आपने cash दे दिया, या आपने किसी को बोला तू अपना कार्ड स्वाइप कर, मैं तुझे कैश दे दिया रिटर्न में. A lot of money laundering happens like this. तो और ये एक परफेक्ट है. एक तरफ तीसरी जगह जहां ये मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग होती थी, and normalization of gangster culture by making it cool. This is the third angle. That is the music industry.
I will come to that, because that is my next question after this. But before that, I want to know, what are these major gangs that are operating in Canada today? Because we hear two things. One is, these people who are extorting money from the Indian diaspora, doing these targeted killings. And on the other hand, we see a lot of these people getting arrested for alleged drug trafficking, being members of drug cartels, a lot of truckers, being arrested for transportation of these drugs. Are these two separate things, or is it the same network?
Kind of most of it overlaps. Now, as far as gangs are concerned, obviously, Bishnoi, Lawrence Bishnoi, and I don't know why people get so triggered when I actually call him by his original name. I mean, मैंने थोड़ा ना उसका नाम रखा, उसके माँ बाप ने उसका नाम रखा, तो जाके उसके माँ बाप से झगड़ा करो भाई. He was Balkaran Brar, मैं क्या करूं? I mean, the Indian Express has reported it, CNN has reported it. I just called him Balkaran Brar, also known as Lawrence Bishnoi, and everybody just lost their minds as if, I am trying to paint some picture. I'm not painting anything. I'm calling him by his name. Like, Lawrence is not a name, honestly, of Desis.
Yeah.
So obviously Lawrence Bishnoi being the main gang, then Bhagwan Puria is there, Danda is there, and many other small, local gangs are there. Then obviously you have to understand the Chinese triads also work over here, the Mexican cartels also work over here, and sometimes they fight with each other, sometimes they work with each other. So this is the Canadian gang landscape as such. When I used to study in 2001 and 2, the thing we were told to be scared of was the Sri Lankan gangs. At that time, I'm talking about 2001 and 2. तभी हमको बोलते थे कि श्रीलंकन गैंग्स बड़े ऐसे होते हैं. A lot of these LTTE types were also. So you can see Canada has always had that culture.
Now you must be feeling at home with all the Punjabis eating.
Yeah, so notice it's always a separatist movement that is used as a cover, and then all the dirty work is done below it by the gangsters.
Right. And now when it comes to the financing, that, how they are sustaining their operation, where is the money coming from? What is the source? Is it through, of course, we understand it's through extortion and drugs, but are there other revenue streams?
Obviously, the gangs must be funded by the Pakistani ISI also. But I think a major chunk of the money literally comes A, from the drug peddling, B, from extortions, and, C, from the immigration scam. Just think about it, okay? In the last 5 years, post-COVID, look at the numbers of people that have consistently come in Canada.
Right.
Even if just 30% of them came through this weird-ass route where they were paying, on average, $50,000 just to enter. After that, every step they were paying these people. You're talking about $1 billion+ where everybody in the immigration, mass immigration. And then, you come here, then you have consultants to do your housing, consultants to get your insurance, because insurance is a big thing over here. And notice who gets extorted over here. There is certain kind of diaspora that gets extorted over here. Canada also has, tech geeks. The highest amount of money, even in Canada and America, is not with the trucker, not with the jewelry store, not with the insurance agent, not with the Cricket Canada guy. Highest amount of money is always with whom? The big food processing guys, the big tech guys,
real estate,
big people.
Yeah,
they are never touched. There is a certain kind of diaspora that is always touched. And the question nobody wanted to ask, because I guess they were scared that we are giving fodder to the racists, is that, maybe the old line कि कुछ शहर के लोग भी जालिम थे, कुछ हमें भी मरने का शौक था. Maybe these people were involved with the gangs and they were riding the immigration gravy train. And then suddenly Trudeau went, Carney came, the gravy train stopped, लोगों के पैसे डूबे, भले individuals हो या companies हो या gangsters हो, and now क्या बोलते हैं, the chickens are coming home to roost. And they are being like, मेरे पैसे कितने गए? Either give me the money or the product. If you don't do that, maybe you get the bullet. This is a sad reality. And what the funny thing is, if you we have our diaspora meetings, gatherings, openly बात होती है इसकी. और वो उसके साथ था, ओपनली बात होती है, बट कोई मीडिया पे बात नहीं करेगा, क्योंकि किसी को बात नहीं करनी. दिस इज दैट code of silence that the diaspora also was, a section of the diaspora was involved in this. They were benefiting and they were being given cover by Canadian members of parliament who are also involved in it. And these Canadian members of parliament, obviously parliamentarian ka thoda privilege hota hai na, higher, so they may not get touched because after all they are parliamentarians.
Right.
But diaspora is not. You are just a businessman, so you are going to get the bullet. And this is what is happening here, which is why these gangs became such a menace. See, these gangs always existed. I at least in my coverage of last 15-16 years, I have never seen a country without a gang. But gangs are very sophisticated. The thing about gangs being successful is they should not be in the public eye. The only way the gang will succeed is they're not in the public eye.
Hmm.
Here, the complete opposite is happening. Gangs are posting videos. It clearly shows something went grossly wrong somewhere. The
Hmm.
sheer number of these people, right, that came into Canada was unbelievable. And the highest amount of shootings and extortions were not happening in America. They were disproportionately high in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time we spoke, you also mentioned about the music industry and its link. If you could tell our viewers about that, please.
So again, you have to look at it from the perspective of, a lot of Punjabi music industry is inspired by the gangster rap culture of the 80s and 90s, East Coast, West Coast battles, Suge Knight, and all those people, Tupac, Biggie Smalls, or latter battles that were having. If you notice Punjabi music industry, these artists keep having rap battles, and now it has extended to even Bihari rappers going after Punjabi rappers and vice versa. So now everybody is kind of become kooky. But the point is that Suge Knight also used to do a lot of dirty work. वो तो जेल गया था इस चक्कर में. He was convicted. Similar patterns have started developing here, and you have artists clearly celebrating पिंडरावाले. वो क्या नाम है उसका, चन्नी नट्टा है और भी लोग हैं. What's that song? नी मैं डाकू. That entire song is based on the famous speech of पिंडरावाले. मैं डाकू हूं. He actually narrates the speech of पिंडरावाले in the song. The song is like नी मैं डाकू एक नंबर दा. Then obviously Musewala also started doing that, and Musewala was a clear case of being involved in gangs, right? There was Bambia gang and there were many others, and
There
Musewala.
was a song, Bambiha Bole on that as well.
Yeah, so the whole thing is that this was always there, and the gangs were also, the music industry also gets used to normalize gun culture, drug culture,
Yeah.
Flashy lifestyles and all that. And then these artists, they don't know when they are being used. The artists also are just going with the ride, and they are also very scared because these gangsters can, especially after Musewala's murder, they are even more scared now because they're like, yaar ye to humko kabhi bhi maar sakte hain. Plus I think the buddhi, or I think also is kind of off. They think, they also start somewhere down the line, they have also started drinking their own Kool-Aid. They also think they're gangsters now. A lot of these artists, they think they're gangsters now. And when push
Because
comes
they have
to
to back it, is it?
yeah, kind of, right? And how is the money being made? Obviously, again, fake revenue receipts, fake concert sales, a
So
lot
you're
of
talking about concerts that happen across the world.
across the world. And again, these concerts are also used very cleverly to traffic humans, because you could join as a tech artist or a supporting artist or as a artist in the team, like a camera or a sound technician, and then you just disappear. These are the ways they use. So that's how money and all these things are intertwined.
Right. Talking about India-Canada relations, now it hit a rock bottom during Prime Minister Trudeau's tenure. Do you see visible changes on the ground now after the regime change? Is there a meaningful change that you're seeing? And we'll also come to the stricter immigration policies and how essentially the asylum was misused and how it's getting better. But first, I want to know from you, what is the meaningful change that you're seeing after the regime change? And of course, now we have seen after this indictment officially said that it was Lawrence Bishnoi's syndicate that was involved in the Sikh separatist Nijjar's killing and not the government of India. It's a complete U-turn from what I won't say a U-turn. It's a rebuttal of sorts because the Canadian Prime Minister had accused Indian authorities of being involved in Nijjar's killing. And then after the indictment, Canada also released a statement saying that the government of India was not involved in that killing.
So, again, there is this, I call this first world arrogance in the discourse of these countries. A lot of journalists also over here, Many good journalists, Terry Milevsky, Terry Glavin, Kim Bolan, and many others, are very good, decent human beings, honest journalists. But there is a certain lot of journalists, right? उनकी सुई है ना 1960 में ही अटकी हुई है. वो वहीं से हमारे साथ है ना, वो जब बात करते हैं ना, वो 1960 वाले इंडिया से बात कर रहे हैं. So it's a lot of condescension. These third world people, it stems from there. So you have to understand how the discourse was after Carney. So let us look at tangible, measurable points. So if I say there is real change, how do I measure it? That's any logical person would like to measure it. The first measurement criteria is how many photos did Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau have with Khalistan in the background?
Yeah.
And how many does Carney have? The number with Carney is a big zero. He's been a prime minister now for a while.
Yeah.
No photos. He just doesn't do it. He's very clear. In many ways, it's good that Carney was a rich guy from Brookfield guy who came in, because he just didn't need their money. He just didn't need their money. Because there are videos, like, I'll give you the example of Pierre Poilievre. Yesterday on my podcast, I played this video. Pierre Poilievre being like, stop the deportation. And today the same Pierre Poilievre is like, deport them all. Like, bhai, decide kar le tu. It's like, what? So there is obviously monetary interests and how politicians talk. Carney just doesn't need it. So the first point is Carney is just not entertaining them. Carney doesn't entertain them. That is point number one. So there is a change. Point number two is, if you look at the Hogue inquiry, and if you want, I can share that screenshot with you of the Hogue inquiry write-up, where originally when the Nijjar murder had happened, these guys were investigating it as a gang murder.
Yeah. I saw that. They said that it's a case of gang war. Yes.
It was always a gang violence. But then suddenly, because remember, Justin Trudeau had a coalition government with Jagmeet Singh, because he just didn't have the numbers. Carney has the numbers. Carney doesn't care, right? He doesn't have to appease NDP or anyone for that matter. He just goes ahead and does what he wants to do. Trudeau had this, Jagmeet bogey. And then the moment they started investigating this, a lot of Khalistani politicians, along with these Khalistani quote activists, they started pressurizing these people, and they had to change tact. And that's when this whole thing about, the Indian government did it started. And then Trudeau, I don't know what the hell he was thinking. He ended up saying what he did. I think he tried to preempt the Globe story, and he just uttered what he uttered. And they never had anything. They kept the Canadian discourse uses the weirdest language. It's a thing in Canada. Like, it's very performative. Har cheez mein, everywhere you go, they will have a land acknowledgement. Then Trudeau will chide people for saying mankind. No, you should say people kind. It's very Trudeauesque. They're very performative over here. And I'm not judging them. I'm just saying what I observe when I live here for 5.5 months and I go to these functions. And Canadians are very performative in things. Like, they've always been. And Trudeau was param performative. He was performative on steroids. So they kept on appeasing. And Carney just stopped doing it. Now look at how the RCMP has done a change. Now, yesterday there was this certain thing. No. The RCMP deputy commissioner had only said about the Operation Hardball investigation, there is no Indian involvement. Now the Globe, after that, posted another article. They did ask them, what about the Nijjar investigation in Canada? They're like, we don't want to comment about it. That is Canadian, the Canadian discourse is like a jalebi. It keeps going round and round and round. And this is like classic Canadianese.
So have they or have they not really acknowledged the organized crime problem that Canada has?
That's the only thing they have acknowledged, that we have an organized crime problem in Canada. Now the agents of the Indian government, this was a Khalistani line, yaar. This was a Khalistani line. I remember this. The same politician Melanie Jolie had released that Indian media report, and many big Indian handles. Basically what the Khalistanis must be sitting on Twitter, and they must be like, "Eh, banda mara hai, enu vekho," and they must have created this list and given it to their Canadian politicians. And the Canadian politicians basically must have corrected all the grammatical errors, because obviously Khalistanis and English, my Londa Gironda from Hero Honda level English, they must have done a grammar check and they must have copy pasted it. Otherwise, which white man knows what Godi media is? It was such a giveaway. I was like, Godi media, oh yaar, come se come, don't make it so obvious. And this coming from the Canadian media, where 60% of the Canadian media is actually bankrolled by the government of Canada. And they call our media Godi media. That's the irony of it all. Canadian media is literally state-run. So now what has happened is, look and carefully analyze the deputy commissioner's statement and David Cochrane's question on CBC. What did David Cochrane say? Prime Minister Trudeau had mentioned this. David Cochrane never said the then Liberal government had accused the government of India. You see the sleight of hand here. This is very Canadian. What they are doing is they're basically de-linking the Liberal Party and the Liberal government, because Carney is also a Liberal, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody will be like, "Oye, तेरी सरकार ने ये बोला, तेरी सरकार ये बोल रही है, मतलब क्या है? क्या decide कर ले यार." So they quickly said, Prime Minister Trudeau said, "असी थे कुछ कितना ही नहीं, वो तो Trudeau था." So this is what they're doing. They're ceding the space now, because they know eventually they have to deal with the fact that, look, if they had evidence, right? You think they would not have leaked it in the last 3 years? Like, let's get real. यहाँ पे Canada में 2 दिन नहीं रुकते. They leak everything. Like, every time Carney comes to India, there is now I can predict with a pattern. Stuart Bell will write one article, then somebody will write one article. मैं तो नाम लेके बोल रहा हूँ, सब लोग, मेरे को मालूम है अब कुछ इंडिया कनाडा होने वाला है. जैसे पीयूष गोयल was coming to Canada, or he came to Canada, immediately article आ जाते हैं. So we know Baz News will write one article, CTV will write one article, Globe will write one article. It is like, now this whole statement has come, the Sikh community is under pressure. कौन बात कर रहा है? खालिस्तानी. The change is clear, because these articles were not coming before. So this is how we measure how the stand of the Canadian government now has changed. The Canadian government, Carney basically came in and was like, यार हम इनसे trade करेंगे, हम इनसे झगड़ा करते रहें.
Right.
That's the whole point. And what are they complaining about? The Indian government said, send these gangsters back.
Yeah.
So the Indian Jaishankar is on record stating that we keep on telling you, Baba, don't take these people. They are dangerous.
आप लोग सुनते ही नहीं हो.
So that's the whole point, right?
They don't entertain our extradition applications. They don't entertain any communication sent from enforcement agencies. I mean, till now they were not. Things are apparently becoming smoother now. But my next question on what has changed. The immigration policy has become stricter. You spoke about it before also. In fact, I had done a story on how widespread the misuse of the Canadian asylum system was. And now there's a crackdown. And in fact, there was some data that was shared by Canadian authorities in which it said that a lot of these asylum applications are now being rejected. Now, when I spoke to some enforcement officials and some experts from Canada, they told me, in fact, we also had a word. They told me that, many of these applications from youngsters come to us and they have the same sort of story. In some cases, they also said that they carry out anti-national activities like trampling off the national flag at a protest, or putting up the Khalistan poster, so that they can make a case for asylum, not necessarily that they support that ideology or they have to do anything with that idea, but they do it to support their asylum application. That, see, now since I am associated with this movement, I am this person who will be religious. I have a case of religious persecution, and which is why I should be given asylum. So a lot of these cases went to Canadian authorities, but now what we are seeing is increasing rate of rejection. So how have the immigration policies become stricter, and how is this playing out on the ground?
So they were, do you know how many asylum applications, refugee claims from India were there in 2014? 20.
There was a
20.
400% increase. I know. I'm aware. I'm aware. The increase was massive in the last 7, 8 years.
In 2022, it becomes 3,469. So obviously, all these fraudulent people, agents, they realize that this is the only way. I have read files off the record. I laughed my ass off. So there were cases where this guy says, I was a Aam Aadmi Party voter in India.
Yeah.
These BJP people are torturing me. Then the other guy says, I am a BJP voter in India. These Aam Aadmi people are torturing me. It is so funny.
I'm sure उसका reject हो गया होगा.
अरे वो पहले तो see what happens is एक बार आपकी एप्लीकेशन लग गई ना तो कैनेडियन लॉ में आपको 2-3 साल रहने को मिल जाता है. तो ये सब है ना उधर रहने को अलाउ करने के तरीके होते हैं ताकि मेरा काम हो जाए, मैं कुछ भी करके रह लूं. Then the rise of the suddenly gay people. You know the amount of homosexuals in the Indian community in Canada suddenly went from here to here. Everybody was a homosexual now because I am a homosexual. I have been oppressed in India. So please let me in Canada. So they tried everything. मतलब जो बोलो, political asylum, homosexual based asylum, Khalistan. So half of the people who used to go to these referendums were, taking the Khalistan flag. And I remember because I used to cover these referendums, right? मैं तो चुपचाप देखता था. I would never write anything. All I was like a fly in the wall. I would just stand in the Nagar Kirtan and observe their behavior. And they would be like, ऐसे खड़े रह के स्माइली फोटो ले रहे हैं और एक स्टूडेंट आता है बोलता है ओ मैनू झंडा दे तू मेरी फोटो ले वो उसकी फोटो लेता है. This is it was so obviously fraudulent. And eventually the Canadians were like यार इतने even Canada जिसको लगता होगा कि हम थर्ड वर्ल्ड है इंडिया में उसको भी लगा यार इतना तो थर्ड वर्ल्ड इंडिया भी ना हो कि इतने सारे asylum applications. The number one asylum applications to Canada were from Mexico before this.
I know. Mexico is actually second now, second in number.
The Mexicans must be like, साले हमारी technique चोरी कर ली तुमने. They must be feeling left out. So
they're actually number one every year क्योंकि ऐसे ही चलता रहता है उनका. India and Mexico.
ये हमारा FIFA soccer चल रहा है asylum में उनके साथ. So my request through your platform to every single Western government is you want to solve this gangster problem. The biggest loophole these gangsters exploit is immigration. Just do 2-3 steps. One, no matter what, you need a police clearance. It adds a layer. Okay, it adds a layer. 2, no asylum applications from India will be accepted. India is a democracy. Yes, it is a flawed democracy. Look, are there human rights violations in India? Yes. But Ananya, you and I, as Indians, we will fight our own battles in India. ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं 12 महीने यहाँ रहता हूँ 6.5-7 महीने मैं भी इंडिया में ही रहता हूँ और वहां मतलब मुझसे ज्यादा तो कोई बोलता नहीं है ना फ्री स्पीच के लिए इंडिया में. मेरा तो नाम ही खराब है कि किसी भी आदमी की फ्रीडम के लिए सपोर्ट कर देता है. तो पॉइंट इज वी विल फाइट आवर ओन बैटल्स. वी शुड स्टॉप दिस asylum claim gravy train. We do this right, you will destroy the gang nexus here. You will destroy and deport incessantly. One mistake, deport them. कुछ शर्म नहीं करनी चाहिए. And fourth, declare Khalistan to be an illegitimate cause based on data. You do this, this entire problem is solved. Will they do it? I don't know. Now they are rejecting, I think the rejection rates of even student visas in Canada, the last report was 73%.
Yeah, now the rejections are really growing. In fact, not just Canada, I saw data from New Zealand. The same story is playing out there as well.
Yeah, they realize that, and I'm happy. And I also feel very bad, especially for the girls who were exploited here. This and in this entire kerfuffle between India and Canada, people forget that I had stated this number very openly, that just in the greater Toronto region, around 4,000 Indian origin girls were being sexually exploited or were victims of sexual trafficking just in the greater Toronto area. Imagine what's happening in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, America, Western Europe. Imagine what's happening there. And I think the Indian government also, my appeal to them would be to write to their Western counterparts and say, stop accepting asylum claims from our country. Stop.
Right.
Just stop it.
Right.
And I think we would help our girls back in India. We need to stop, put an end to this. And as far as this entire Nijjar murder assassination is concerned, look, somewhere down the line, the Canadian media will have to ask uncomfortable questions like, why did he have Interpol lookout notices? If he was a plumber, what was he doing with that gun in that famous photo? वो कोई प्लमिंग का उस्तरा बुस्तरा तो नहीं था ना, कुछ नहीं था ना, कोई पेचकस तो नहीं था ना. It was a gun. They will have to deal with uncomfortable realities of Nijjar. If Nijjar was such an innocent soul, why was he on no-fly list in America and Canada both?
Yeah.
So these are the uncomfortable questions that they will have to tackle with. I think the current government is trying to, in the most Canadian politically correct way possible. Let's see. Look, the problem with Canada is that their inherent, their own only raison d'etre is Canada is this. They say we're not Americans. That's actually, आप किसी कनाडा को जाके पूछोगे ना, तुम हो कौन? एक एवरेज कैनेडियन बोलेगा हम अमेरिकन नहीं है. ये कोई आंसर है? This is like Indian saying we are not Pakistani. No. Indian will give you an answer. Civic nationalism, whether they are coming from a Congress party line or BJP from a Hindutva line, they will give you an answer. Whether a BJP or a Congress person or just an average Indian, they will give you a proper answer who an Indian is. Canadians don't have an answer. And another very weird thing that I've noticed in Canada, there was a recent poll. Canadian liberals are more patriotic than Canadian conservatives. Usually what happens in every country in the world that I have visited, the right wing is more patriotic, the left is like anti-national, whatever. Canada mein complete ulta hai. Canada mein the left liberal is actually the one that wants a separate country, is patriotic. The right is actually 24% last poll mein aaya tha, is actually very unpatriotic. So, the Canadian right also is very unique. So, let's see what happens. My view is this Nijjar case will end up just like the Air India bombing investigation. There will be no answer, because that's the very Canadian way of dealing with things, which in Punjabi we say mitti pao.
Just last question and then I'll let you go. What evidence and links, you have been looking at these gangs and they're functioning for so long, have you come across, or is there evidence that you can cite for the links of these gangs to Pakistan?
Well, you will see Pakistani politicians talking to a lot of these shady people who are involved with these gangs. You will see Pakistani origin Canadian politicians in very interesting gatherings, especially in British Columbia. You will see there. You can also see certain pictures in UK, for example, of Pakistani politicians with these Khalistani separatists, and these Khalistani separatists with these gang affiliations, showing gang signs in their Instagram videos. So if you dig deep enough, you will find these connections, that Pakistan is deep. In fact, the one side nobody has talked about in this entire gang warfare, and Pakistan must be so happy, is like hamara pind chhoot gaya, is that there are, behind all this gang is also a Pakistani connection. I wonder why we are not talking about it. Pakistani gangsters are also here, Pakistani origin gangsters. Eventually, I think it will come out. Right now, I think that this came out because Americans wanted this to come out.
Yeah.
Right now, America likes Pakistan. I don't know. After 6 months, maybe America will not like Pakistan again.
So it'll come out when they decide.
It only comes out when America decides. Do you think this came out because Canada decided?
कनाडा तो अपने अंदर रहने वाले गैंगस्टर को नहीं पकड़ पा रहा था. वो अमेरिका ने बोला ओए फड़ एनू, तो उन्होंने पकड़ लिया. उन्होंने बोला सलूट सर जी, मैं करना, तुसी दसो की करना. Canada only listens to America. They pretend to listen to China.
Right. Thank you so much for this insightful discussion, to be a part of this amazing discussion. And next time when you're here, we'll discuss more of gangs, more of Khalistan, more of Canada. Thank you so much for taking time out. I'm sure you have to go for other discussions as well, you told me. Sorry I held you up for so long.
No problem. Thank you. As always, a pleasure talking to you. Please take care.
Thank you. Thank you.